Starting with the first page, what questions do we want to see do go over on that first page? No questions from the first page. We're all good on all the parallel. 9 and number 1. In numbers 1 through 4, you're going to write an equation that is either parallel or perpendicular to whatever's given. So in number 1, parallel, the slope has to be the same. And then the y-intercept has to be different. So you can choose any other number that's not 2. So give me some number. 5, sure. Yes. Plus 5, that would work. You could also do -2. You could leave it off and just put 0. Any other number that's not 2. Questions there? We're going to go down to do number 9. If there are any others on this page we want to see you go over, we will do those as well. So the first thing you need to do is write the original. Which is going to be in y equals mx plus b. So our y-intercept is at -4. Our slope is at +2. So that would be y equals 2x minus 4. And then very similar to number 1, we're going to write an equation that's parallel. So it has to have the same slope and then a different y-intercept. Give me a different number. And then for the perpendicular, we're going to take that slope and flip it. It's really over 1. So we're going to put 1 over 2, but make it negative. And then you can pick whatever y-intercept. It could be the same, it could be different, it doesn't matter. So short. If you want to put -4 or 5, either of those would be fine. Or 0, or 1,000,000, whatever number you want. Yours has these directions, mine doesn't, but it says use point slope for at least one parallel and one perpendicular. So I'll do point slope so we remember what that is. So in number 6, we want this to be parallel to the one that's given. Cross out the y-intercept, we don't need that. We are going to use that same slope, 1/5. And we're going to use our point. So that would be y minus a -2, or you can go ahead and make that a plus, equals 1/5 times x minus a -5, or you could go ahead and make that a plus. I'm going to make those both a plus before I do anything else. And then distribute and solve. So this would be, I'm going to write this above. Y plus 2 equals 1/5 x plus 1. The 5s would cancel. And subtract 2 on both sides. So that final answer is y equals 1/5 x minus 1. This would be parallel to the original because they have the same slope but a different y-intercept. Do you have any questions on that or any other questions on this page? Yeah. I kind of wrote this stuff in fourth space, but I'll just write that off to the side. So if I'm looking for something that's perpendicular to 4, I'm going to take this fraction and flip it to 5/4 and make it positive. So positive 5/4. And then, because it's perpendicular, the y-intercept can be whatever you want. I'm just going to make it the same.
And for the number please like
You would just write, this one's actually a little bit. So the slope of this is undefined. If it's perpendicular, the opposite of that would be 0. And a line that has a 0 slope is a y equals. So you would pick some number and make a y equals. Other questions on this page before we get into the word problems? Which one? So it's going to be like this one. The slope's going to be the same. Just change the y-intercept to any other number but 3. You can be minus 3. It just can't be positive 3. Okay. For the word problems, we can do the more complicated ones, or we can do all 4. I'll let you guys choose. So this is all 4 types that we've been talking about over the last 2 classes. So in 14, you plan to go snowboarding this weekend in Pennsylvania. The resort charges $15.75 per hour, in addition to a $25 deposit to rent a snowboard. Write and solve a linear equation to find the total cost to rent the snowboard from 8:30 to 12:30. So I underlined the important things. I see a per in there, so that's my M. The $25 deposit, that's going to be B. Total cost is going to be Y, which means this is going to be X, and I would count how many hours that is, which would be 4. So if you're given an M and a B, this has to be in Y equals mx+b format. And you would set that up. So I don't know what Y is, but I know M is 1575, X is 4, and B is 25. That would be your equation. Then you would put that in a calculator, either all at once or multiply and add. Make sure you're putting labels, so $88 since we were looking for total cost. Questions on that one before we do 15? In 15, when Emma went bowling, it cost $4.95 per game, plus a one-time fee to rent shoes. Emma played 5 games and paid $32. Write and solve the linear equation to find the cost to rent shoes. So in this example, we have our M. We have something that would be X, something that would be Y, because the total paid $32. What we don't have is that fee, the one-time fee. So that's what we're going to end up solving for. So we need our point slope to solve that. So y minus 32 equals our 495 times x minus 5. That would be our equation. And then to solve, distribute the 495. add 32. So 720. So B, the cost to rent shoes would be $7.25. If you also put this equation, or if you put that equation instead, I would take either or. Questions on that one? So the first one we were given M and B. The second one we were not given B. In this next one, the monthly rent for an 800 square foot office is $975. For 1,100 square foot office, the rent is $1,125. Write and solve a linear equation to find the monthly rent for a 1,500 square foot office. So in this one, it looks like we're comparing two different things, but the square foot and the rent costs go together. They're related. So this is going to be another one where we use point slope, but we have to find what the slope is first. The monthly rent depends on the square footage, so the square footage is X, this is Y. And we're going to find our slope by subtracting those numbers first. This minus this, so 1,125 minus 975 over 1,100 minus 800. And then we would subtract that. And that's 300. So it'd be 150 over 300, which is 0.5. So 0.5 or 1/2 is fine, either or. So that's the first part. Find your slope. Now that you have your slope, you can use your point slope formula with either set of points. I'm going to use the 800 and the 975 just because they're smaller. So y minus 975 equals 0.5 times x minus 800. And distribute. And solve. So that when I add 975, we get 575. So for your equation, you can put this last one, or you can put what we started with, either or. And then the very last step, so we found our equation, but now we have to use that equation to find the monthly rent for a 1,500 square foot office. So since the square footage was X before, we're going to put that back in for X. And figure out what Y is. You, again, put that all in your calculator all at once, or multiply it into. So 13.5. And that would be in dollars because we're looking for monthly rent. So that one's going to take up the most of your time. questions about that? Okay. And we're going to do this last one, where everything else ended up in a y equals mx+b format. This one does not. So Brienne's piggy bank has all nickels and dimes. The total value of the money in her piggy bank is $7.80. If Brienne has 66 nickels, write and solve a linear equation to find the number of dimes she has. So it doesn't give you the value of whatever you're dealing with. You have to know those. And this is going to be in the format ax plus by equals c. So let's say I make the nickels a, so that would be 0.05, and the dimes b, so 0.10. Then anything related to nickels would be then x and then y for the dimes. So this would be 0.05. I have 66 nickels, so I'm going to multiply those together. That would be my x. And then number of dimes I don't know, so I'm going to leave that as y. And I know my total is going to be 70. So then I can solve for the missing variable, which in our case is y. If you had switched the variables and made dimes a instead, you'd have a different variable, but you would still get the same answer. Make sure you have the 0.05, not 0.5 when you're multiplying, so 3.3 plus 0.10, y equals 780. Subtract on both sides. And then divide by that 0.10, not 10. To get 45. So your equation would have been what we started with, and then the solution would be your number of dimes, 45 dimes. What questions, if any, do we have on this or anything in general? Same rules as last quiz, it is still collaborative. That means we're not just copying down answers, we're talking through it. You can still use your notes, but make sure that you're not just looking at the notes. You need to know this stuff for the test because you won't have your notes. Okay?